Hello and welcome to another Dragon Plus live stream. I am your host, Bart Carroll, with my two distinguished colleagues and guests this week.
Distinguished.
Yeah, let's kind of lower the bar there, Bart.
With my two guests this week, Chris Perkins and Sean Wood. If you are new to the Dragon Plus live stream, this is where we discuss more of the content that's in our Dragon Plus online magazine, but also the design, the development, and the running of your D&D game content. For this episode, we've been talking quite a bit about Tomb of Annihilation as it was just released to your friendly local game store today, and more widely on the 19th of September. As part of our game content, we're always thrilled that we fill our books with beautiful art. So we wanted to take an opportunity to showcase some of the art this week. Not just the finished pieces, but some of the early concepting sketches that Sean worked on. So quick introductions as I prattle on. Chris Perkins, I know folks are familiar with yourself. In fact, you were our beloved guest last week, but if you're just tuning in, what is your role here at Wizards of the Coast?
Comedy. No, my role is I'm the lead story designer. So I come up with the stories that drive our entertainment offerings, and then I work with other staff members to bring those stories to life.
In this case, the story development for Tomb of Annihilation.
That's correct.
And just out of curiosity, when does story development for Tomb of Annihilation start? When did that process first start?
About 2 years ahead of the release schedule.
In fact, we did a bit of an interview with you in issue 14 of Dragon Plus, I believe, talking about some of the creative scheduling and content that goes into each campaign book.
Yes.
And Sean, I don't believe people have met you on camera yet.
Probably not.
So your role here at Wizards of the Coast on the D&D team and your involvement with Tomb of Annihilation.
Sure. I'm a concept artist, and I came in not at the very beginning of Tomb of Annihilation, but kind of at a not too far once we were in it. And my role is to try to pull the ideas out of Chris's head and draw them, and sometimes secretly try to plant new ones in.
Incept ideas.
Yes.
So how does that process work?
I thought they were my ideas.
Do you guys sit down in a room and you run them through the story outline, and then you sort of are inspired to sort of create some initial visuals and then present them back?
Yeah, Sean and Richard Witters, our senior art director, they sit in on our creative meetings. And sometimes they talk, and sometimes they just listen and doodle, and sort of leave it up to them to decide their level of direct involvement in the conversation, but they're always thinking about the story while conversations are happening. And then they go off, and days or weeks later, stuff
Hopefully not
appears.
that long. But sometimes, yeah.
Sometimes it's hours, sometimes it's days.
So before we start taking a look through some of the art itself, I did want to mention that we are participating this year again in Extra Life. This will be November 4th on the actual Extra Life event day. Chris Perkins will be running a game in the evening of November 4th at Gamehole Con in Madison, Wisconsin. Sean will be running a game here on November 4th in the afternoon in the offices of Wizards of the Coast. We do have that information up on the Dungeons & Dragons website, dnd.wizards.com/extralife2017, so feel free to go there to get the game information. You can also go to your particular game pages and donate to help the cause. It's a good cause. It's for children's hospitals. This year, in addition to running games on our live stream channel on twitch.tv/DND, we are also putting together the Tortle Package. And what pray tell, is the Tortle Package?
So the Tortle Package is a PDF download that will be available on DM's Guild, which you can reach at dmsguild.com. And it was born out of a Twitter poll. As you might recall, Jeremy Crawford and Mike Merles had a very brief Twitter war about the viability of Tortles, which is a race that you can play that dates all the way back to like the basic and expert D&D games of earliest editions. And out of that poll, we discovered there was a great deal of Tortle love.
if memory serves, the poll might have been slanted in favor of
No,
Turtles awesome or like extra awesome.
Well, it was if you sided with Mike, you thought Tortles were dumb and should never see the light of day again. If you sided with Jeremy, then you believe Tortles are the be-all and end-all of Tortledom and deserve to be recognized as such. So in a vote of almost 2-1, people voted in favor of Tortles, and that inspired me to go home and write Tortles up as a playable race, and also to bring it into Tomb of Annihilation, figure out where in Chult do Tortles come from, and what can I say that's interesting about that place, and is there an adventure location that you can go to there to discover even more secrets about that place. And so about a week later, I had a first draft.
So I can only imagine the grung are the anthropomorphized tree frog people.
Mm-hmm.
Is there any interaction with Tortles as the anthropomorphized turtle people?
You mean between Tortles and Grung?
Between Tortles and grung?
There can be.
Okay.
Tortles and Grung aren't
like
natural enemies.
That's where I immediately spring to mind.
The funny thing about Tortles is they don't really have any natural enemies because they generally like all other intelligent creatures that they encounter. They're very much explorers, and there's a whole life cycle to them that's sort of described in the Tortle package I won't go into here. Suffice to say, they go out into the wilderness to eke out a living for their 50-odd years of life before they finally decide to return home to have babies. And in that time, they can embrace all sorts of weird cultures and beliefs and faiths. And if they happen to come across a grung and grung start attacking them with poisoned arrows, the Tortle's not going to take kindly to it and mash those grung into pulp. But they don't have any real enemies to speak of.
Okay. And so this will be a package with the playable race?
Yes, it'll have a playable race. It'll have an adventure location. It will talk about where the Tortles come from. It'll have maps of the Tortle home, and a map of a Tortle village, and a map of an adventure location near that village. And then, on top of that, a collection of new monsters that share this Tortle domain with the Tortles.
I'm throwing to Pelham behind the screen. I believe we have one of the new monsters that we can show. And again, this was a concept.
It's a new old monster.
A new old monster
Yes.
that Sean did the
Since we were picking Tortles out of the bowels of history and bringing them forward, we also picked out a number of other monsters from the same edition / time period. So this is one of them.
So I defy the folks on the stream now watching to see if they can come up with the name of the creature that we're looking at right now from the Tortle package. Oh, all right. Fargonaut immediately got it.
Spelled it wrong.
But you are correct. It is the Decapus. That's how I would have spelled it. It's not the...
No.
Okay.
It's Deca, D-E-C-A, because it has 10.
Yes.
Because they are Latin by...
Yes. They speak Latin. Derpus, Clerpus.
How did Nathan Stewart
No
approve
purpose.
something like the Decapus going into
All right. There was no approval whatsoever. I snuck it in.
I
So
understand
it's
that
called a
because I was
decapus
watching
because
right
it's
now.
basically an octopus-like monster, but it's got 10 tentacles instead of 8. And it lives in trees or gazebos, as the case may be.
And it has one of the best smiles of any monster.
Hi, guys! I'm going to eat you up!
So here's a good example of Sean. You
Derpy, derpy, derp!
you get that art order that says we need
at him.
That's not what he sounds like.
He does now.
You get an art order for that. A 10-limbed octopus that lives in a tree. Go. And
Well, with
you're
this
tasked with
for this particular case, all I got was the name
And a
and a
reference.
very old image.
Okay.
Yes.
And-
This monster appeared on the cover of an old TSR adventure. Can
Yeah.
anybody name that adventure?
Oh, there's another trivia question. We're looking at
Going
the
to
chat,
the
right
chat.
now. The first adventure, Fargonaut, we're counting on you. You got the name immediately. The name of the adventure that the Decapus first appeared on the cover of.
Yes.
I think I would guess. We're not.
We're not getting anything.
All right. We'll
So
have to put
it's
that up later.
module B3.
Palace of the Silver Princess.
That's the one.
Okay.
Wow.
That's all right. I thought that would have been my guess.
Yeah. Your geek foo is back.
That's pretty impressive.
So if you too would like to play not only a Tortle, we got one come in. Sakajuia got Silver
There we
Prince.
go.
There we go.
There we go.
The Tortle package will be available shortly, and people have been
Yes.
asking if there's a known release date for the Tortle package.
It'll be on September 19th or sooner, depending on when it gets posted up on DM's Guild. It shouldn't be any later than September 19th. And it will cost something, but all money will go to Extra Life, the charity.
Great. So yeah, if you want to be involved in Extra Life, feel free to.
And it's
participate
got
in sessions.
serious production values. It looks like pages actually taken out of the interior of one of our
Oh
books.
yeah, no, it feels like it's gone through the full production.
Yeah.
Full color art, blah, blah, blah.
So look for it on the DM's Guild.
It's
September
28
19th or
pages.
earlier.
It's got versions of the maps that don't have tags.
I feel like I've got
Yeah.
Quinn right here. My son.
Yes.
Who I think we have. Pelham, do we have the image of Quinn? Here's my first piece of Tomb of
Yes,
Nice.
right.
See, this is parenting at its finest.
Throw him right into the sphere of annihilation.
In my
and be done
defense,
with it.
he's clearly choosing to enter on his own volition. But
Yeah.
what are we?
Looks like he actually threw somebody else, like pushed another kid in,
Yeah.
and
Yeah,
now
just
just
watching him.
watching him.
Plump, like, where did he go? Where did his friend Maddox go to?
Yeah.
Go to now.
Evil Quinn just disposed of good Quinn. Yeah.
So
Turns
from
around,
that
he's
image,
got a goatee.
Yes.
why don't we start looking at some of the some of the actual art from Tomb of Annihilation? We do have the key art piece, if you're familiar with the book cover itself. So this is where we ultimately landed. This is the key marketing piece from Tomb of Annihilation.
Right.
So
Artwork by Ben Oliver.
okay, by Ben Oliver, and we create the art order. This basically, we give him some of the, correct me if I'm wrong, some of the broad themes that are going into the adventure.
That's correct. Yeah. So he had Shauna Narciso, one of our art directors, commissioned this piece and worked with Ben directly. What I gave to Shauna were basically a list of important subject matter and themes in the adventure, so that she could nail down a color palette and work with Ben to figure out how to compose the various elements. But obviously the devil face was going to be a primary element. I didn't realize at the time it was going to be quite so bold. I really liked the way that turned out.
And I know there's been a debate: Green Devil face, Green Devil mask.
It's called the Green Devil Face
Green
in
Devil
Tomb of
Face.
Horrors Adventure.
Okay,
Yeah.
Green
Yeah.
Devil face.
We actually took some time, and I ended up doing a bunch of. You're going to see we're going to redesign it. I probably did 15 different devil masks before we decided just to kind of go with the classic version. It's slightly cleaned up, but I pretty much just used the classic version, and then we're like, you can't really improve upon perfection.
Yeah.
And I think I'm going to jump. I'm going to just shout out some numbers to Pelham. We've got 21B, which is one of a concept pieces that includes the devil mask. Just to take a look at a version of it. So, so here we have this is lovingly horrific. I
Yeah, I don't. If Witters was here, he could tell you who did it, and so I feel bad about not being able to give the artist the correct. Do you remember which one?
Oh.
Because that was even before I was here.
Yeah. I don't know if it's. I don't want to say because I might be wrong.
Yeah.
Well, I will say this. One of the promises we made for Extra Life was to release the art gallery for Tomb of Annihilation. So the finished pieces, of course, and we put the artist names next to each one. We'll look to showcase some of the concept pieces as well. We'll include the artist names so that they get their due.
Yes, but a devil face basically spitting out Bodax is pretty bad news.
Yeah.
And that is one of the more, shall we say, perilous corners of the Tomb of Annihilation.
So for folks that are going through Chult, we sort of organized it. We jumped ahead here, but organizing sort of your path through the adventure. From the key art, you might be making a trip to Chult itself. So we've got image number 1 that we can showcase here. I know this is from the bay,
cool.
but as you sail into town, so what are we looking at here?
So you're looking at a sloop that is having a rather dangerous encounter with a classic monster from who has been part of Chult since Chult was first explored in our products. So this is Aramag. Aramag the dragon turtle. And it is a very, very old dragon turtle. It's partially blind, but extremely savvy and dangerous, and will let you pass through the Bay of Chult in exchange for heaps of treasure. So appease it, and you'll get past unscathed.
If I'm going to play a turtle, I'm going to be worshiping this dragon turtle.
And that's an actual piece from the book.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think for the most part, as we put up the art pieces, if it's full colored, it's an actual piece from the book, but we've got a lot of black and white concept pieces that look pretty darn cool as well. So from the bay, we move into Chult itself, which is image number 2. If you want to cheat, this is the order we're looking at. So I wanted to do a bit of here, jump into some concepts along the way.
Yep.
But, so as you hit the streets of Chult,
That's a fantastic piece.
Again, this was one of the main pieces I've known when we've thrown up in advance of the stream of Annihilation. So
Yeah, this was a marketing piece that was commissioned for marketing purposes and to appear on our website, showing very crowded streets of Fort Nyanzaru.
Sorry, as I readjust right here.
You can definitely see, you know, the chaos your dinosaur race would have caused in this poor, sad town.
Yeah. It's a very colorful town. It is the only major settlement in all of Chult, and Chult is a huge place. So pretty much all cultures gather here to do business and to get a hold of some of the mineral and precious resources that only can be found here.
So jungles of Chult, very resource rich, but very deadly to go into.
Yes.
So
Yes.
after Port Nyanzaru, you're in the heart of darkness.
Exactly. And you better have a good guide, or you better have an armed contingent of Zentarum mercenaries to watch your back, or you're going to get eaten.
So we actually do have some of the guides. If we want to jump to 4C, we showcased Kawashi.
Hey, this is some of your work.
That is some of my
we showcased Kawashi and his partner last time.
Kupalue.
Kupalue.
Yeah.
Weed. For,
AKA weed.
yeah.
Walking weed, right? That was his.
Yeah, that's his full.
Sure.
That's what it means. Kupalue translates to walking weed, or just weed for short.
Just I like
But these two guys are named Farul and Gondolo.
So if you play through Tomb of Annihilation, you're strongly encouraged to pick up a guide because it's going to be useful to manage the jungles. Some guides more
adept than others. These two, what they lack in professional experience, they make up for because they have a flatulent Triceratops as a companion.
And that's a selling point.
Yes.
It could be. I could see ways in which that Triceratops could be put to use.
And I doubt you'd find any better drinking buddies.
They are
the guides.
Yes.
So Sean, you concepted all of the various guides in some format, or a lot of the guides?
A lot of them, if not all of them. I definitely did a pass on them.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes. I think there were a scattered few that you didn't end up doing in the final.
And if we jump to 7A, I think we have a look at concepting for, I don't know if it's the flatulent Triceratops, but we definitely have one of the Triceratops.
Oh,
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah, this was actually just a piece that I had done after a meeting about talking about the jungle and dinosaurs and adventurers and Batiri Goblins that stack up. And
you can see them off to the
really
far
kind
left
of
there.
quick sketch doodles that might have been for one of the writers just to have a piece to talk about what we talked about story. And that's pretty much all it was for. I mean, that, you know, sometimes I just bring in stuff just so we.
How long
have a
did that
moment.
one on the right take to do, say?
I don't know, an hour or two. Sometimes they take longer than others.
That would take
these are pretty quick.
Yeah.
So again, kind of going back to the process, you work on ideation and story creation. You work with the artists to develop some visuals, and then it sounds like some of those visuals then go on to designers that develop specific encounters and
They
material.
could if the direction feels right. We don't give the designers anything that might lead them on the false path or give them an idea of
Right.
something that isn't really there.
We talked about our Vegapygmy guide, so we've got 4A that we can jump to now. That is, here's a look at one of our Vegapygmies.
It's Richard Winters from Volo's guide,
Yeah.
Vegapygmy.
Nice.
Yeah.
So one of the guides that you can also potentially commission is a Vegapygmy, walking weed. I won't go into spoilers about which ones you should or should not select. Let's just agree that some are more adept than others.
And Richard's very good about preserving sort of the visual identity of a monster. Like, he didn't change much design-wise from the original Vegapygmies that appeared in Expedition to the Barrier Peaks back in 1980 or 1981. He kept the top knot and the big sort of bulbous eyes and stuff. But what we didn't have a very good reference of was the Thorny, which is the beast-like monster beside him, and Richard took a few more liberties with that.
So if we've talked about concepting the dinosaurs, if we jump to 8, we can take a look at a finished piece of one of our Chultan dinosaurs.
This guy is called the King of Feathers. Because, he's a feathered Triceratops, feathered Tyrannosaurus Rex that haunts the forbidden city of Omu. And you discover later on, as you're exploring Omu, that he is not only a feathered T-Rex, but also a magical feathered T-Rex.
All T-Rexes are magical,
Yeah,
as far as I'm concerned. This might be a bit inside baseball, but when you look at, say, dinosaurs for an adventure, and there's a certain real-world connotation to them, and there's recent studies about, hey, they may or may not be feathered. Does that play into how you would like to see them perceived in the game, or how comfortable are you bringing real-world knowledge into a Dungeons and Dragons setting?
I have no problem with that. It's the thing is, I don't mind taking something that's fairly ordinary and just kind of pushing it a little bit into the possibility of being unreal.
Speaking of which, if we could jump to 7B. This is an example of a dinosaur pushed in very much into the unreal.
Yes.
So we're looking at, again, you've got your dinosaur pack animals being chased by, this isn't the King of Feathers T-Rex.
Correct. This is a zombie T-Rex. And the way you can tell is it's sort of got rotty parts, and it's basically disgorging human zombies from its mouth. Which the stat block in Tomb of Annihilation actually takes into account. I don't know what that little dinosaur is trailing off to the right there. I think I'm going to call him a Blooposaurus because he's kind of bloopy and blue.
And a moose-boosh.
Yeah. I like the idea that he got lost from a previous expedition that was entirely eaten, and now he's like, oh, I'll join this expedition. That can't go wrong.
This was a mistake.
Oh, God, no.
Honestly, for me, that was sort of its whole selling point, is that there's a stat block for a zombie puking Tyrannosaurus Rex. I'd buy the book just for that.
So not all of the denizens of the Chultan jungles are as horrific. If we want to look at, they're cute in their own way in some capacity. If we look at 14A, we can see one of the, I don't know, cuter critters. You still wouldn't want one as a pet,
God. So you may think that these things are cute, but they are not. They're terrible, mean, savage creatures. In previous editions, however, they weren't particularly rendered, shall we say, well. So this is Richard's take on the Zorbo. The Zorbo originated in the Monster Manual 2 for first edition, and it's basically a koala bear that destroys magic items.
There seem to have been a few monsters from past editions. That was their preferred diet.
It's kind of hedging in on the Rust Monsters shtick a little bit. So its claws can destroy metal. The Zorbo also has the ability to alter its density and consistency to emulate whatever it's holding on to. So if it's hanging off a tree, it can become almost like woody textured. If it's standing on a metal floor, it can assume like a metal-like texture.
Apropos of nothing, except koala bears, I distinctly remember traveling in Australia, and all of the local friends there would try and convince you that there were drop bears. They were mean koalas that would drop from the tree and attack you. So we have to confirm this with our friends at Dragon Friends.
So the Zorbo wasn't originally in the story, but I sort of took it as a personal challenge to try to find a place and home for it, because it's such a underutilized monster.
I'm going to challenge you on another one. Can we jump to 10? Speaking of underutilized monsters.
That's one of my favorites.
So here is a monster that appears in Tomb of Annihilation that you can pick as a wizard familiar or get as an animal companion. It is based on the original first edition Fiend Folio art for the Almiraj. An Almiraj is a bunny with a unicorn horn. That's really all it is.
I just like the fact that it's a D&D monster.
Yeah?
Yeah.
It's a perfectly cromulent D&D monster.
Who would win in a fight? This fellow or the jackalope?
I think that's no contest.
Yeah, it's no contest.
Yeah, jackalopes aren't real, and this is.
Yeah. Yeah, Bart.
I am sorry for putting forward such a foolish
Come on, man.
question.
I thought you were
Yeah.
professional.
But honestly, I didn't know how well the Almiraj would be received until we saw the art.
Yeah.
And then I knew, okay, there's going to be these things all over D&D now.
There's a place for the Decapus with
Nothing,
tentacles with big
nothing
teeth, but also
kills a
place-
monster faster than a bad piece of art.
Okay. That's a lot of pressure,
I was-
actually, now.
I know.
I'm a little nervous.
Yeah. The bar just got a lot higher, Sean.
Thanks.
So let's look at some good monster art. So another of the denizens, let's jump to 15A, another of the denizens of Chult. Taking a look at the concept pieces. Unless I'm mistaken, we've got the Aarakocra.
That was an early sketch for an Aarakocra flying into the monastery of
Kirsabal.
Kirsabal.
And is this a Sean Wood special?
Yes.
Yeah.
Did you know when you were working on the sketch that it would end up as a final in the book?
Probably not, no.
No, I didn't think so.
And if we
Because I remember seeing it for the first time.
15B,
Yeah.
this is how it ultimately came out as a fully
Turned out
colored
great.
edition.
Yeah. As soon as we saw the sketch, we knew we wanted it to be in the book.
This is just me goobing out for a second.
Then we're like, oh God, I hope Sean can paint.
He can't.
Because by then I think I'd only seen black and white stuff.
Yeah.
It was still fairly early on.
I will say one of the privileges, many of working here, though, is I get to walk by the cubes and see the concept pieces that they go up, and they not only inspire the designers, but they inspire us as well.
Yeah.
And I know your pieces because I know the strong black and white and shadowing, and they're awesome. They're awesome pieces.
Yeah.
So
Well, thank you.
this is
This
cool
is one of my absolute favorites in the book.
So we've seen Port Nyanzaru. We go into the jungles of Chult. We've got a couple more critters we could showcase before
What
we
about
get into
6B?
6B.
Another Sean. Is there a 6A?
Oh, sorry, there is a 6A and a 6B.
All right, let's see 6A first.
Oh, yeah. Those are great.
Yeah. This is another one you showed me, and I'm like, we got to have a color version and just drop it in the book.
Yeah. As soon as Chris told me about the Chwingas, I was like, as a Miyazaki fan, and loving the little cute things that enforce spirits and stuff like that, I immediately went to town and was trying to. I drew some concepts with just like the random colored masks and the inky blots, but like wanted to do a sketch for scale basically, and the idea of trying to get something that kind of captured that there's more than just battling monsters when you walk through, a forest full of plants.
Right. You've got the Vegapygmy. They're entities, but not necessarily hostile.
Right.
The Chwingos, am I pronouncing that correctly?
Yeah.
I believe we saw them in a recent episode of Force Grey. They appeared.
Yes, they also appeared on the stage at the PAX West live game.
Yep.
They're tiny little figures, but
Yeah.
And the Force Grey players didn't quite know what they were dealing with, if they're beneficial or hostile or just neutral. But
you'll find out when you pick up Tomb of Annihilation.
Yes,
But in terms of art, what I thought was most interesting about them stylistically was that they live in this very colorful realm, but they themselves are black and white. They're very stark in that way, and I think they stand out because of it.
yeah, they're a very unique entity. I'm thinking now.
And we played with like giving them color masks and different colors and making them like very rainbowic, but we decided, or somebody decided, it wasn't even me, that this look just worked better.
I was going to say they'd make great emotes for Twitch subscribers. So
Yeah.
we'll work on that. But speaking of more colorful entities, if we jump to 9A, 9B, 9C, We've seen a bit of the Batiri. Danny Hartel made great costumes.
Yeah,
so.
both she and Holly Conrad made Batiri costumes. These are Richard Witter's sketches. When we were first talking about the goblins of Chult and trying to give them an identity, and this idea that they hop on each other's shoulders and kind of form these living totem poles, Richard just went mad and did piles and piles and piles of sketches of masks and different goblins to try to flesh these guys out. And he did versions of the Batiri stack that had very, very colorful masks, and then he sort of toned down the colors a little bit to make them feel more natural.
And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, they appear in our miniature line for Tomb of Annihilation as well. There's also a Vegapygmy Chieftain, and at least one of our guides as well is in there. So
there's quite a few cool things in there.
I asked Adam Lee about that. Is it? It's one of those. Is it awesome or extra awesome questions? But seeing some of the creations from a story perspective or an art perspective, seeing it fully realized, not just in a book, but as a physical piece around the table.
Yeah. But Batiri in Chult basically represent the savage race. And they have tribes everywhere, and one of their customs is to sort of name each tribe after some horrible thing that they have to sort of live with. So the tribe that figures most prominently in Tomb of Annihilation is called the Biting Ant tribe.
So we would be part of like the income tax tribe, or the modern Batiri. But that's coming later. Just because I love them so much, can we look at number 11 and then 13 after this? So we've got two sides of a coin, maybe. On one hand, we've got the flying monkeys, and then the Sioux monster here. So this is the flying monkey.
The flying monkey was a really, really late addition to the adventure, and the art sells it. I mean, it could have been really dumb.
In the game I ran, once I put this up on the screen, all the players wanted to ally themselves with the flying monkeys immediately.
Well, you should have experience points taken away from you for killing a flying monkey. It should be worth negative experience points. I mean, look at that face.
They loaded them up with gear just to bribe them.
My players would immediately think it was a trick.
And if Kate Irwin were here, she'd be able to tell you right off the bat who the arist is, but I don't remember the artist's name. She did a great job.
Yeah.
Well, and again, for those watching, we'll have the art gallery up on the website with the artist's name.
The upside-down Sioux monster, that's a Richard Witter's special right there.
Now, the Sioux monster, I remember from back in first edition.
Yeah, it was in the original monster manual.
And again, it was one of those, if you ever travel to like Costa Rica or Puerto Rico and meet monkeys in real life,
they're kind of terrifying.
In your mind, they're like the flying monkeys, like, oh, they're cute. But in real life, sometimes they're like, oh my God, they've got sharp teeth and they want the food you're carrying.
Yeah.
I love the look of the Sioux monster.
Yeah, when Richard did a bunch of sketches of them originally, something wasn't working well, and I suggested to him that he hang it upside down, because Sioux monsters actually hang from their tails and attack while hanging, and that kind of gave the monster its identity.
So kind of doing our little survey through the jungles of Chult, and we've got some great concept pieces coming up for within the tombs and the dungeons themselves. So I thought we'd look a bit through 18A, B, C, D. We'll go slowly through these, so just kind of pausing on each one here. So what are we looking at here with the various doors?
Those were just sketches that came out of a meeting when we were talking about the actual Tomb of Annihilation itself, and we were talking about doors and possibilities of what kind of doors we could have. And then for funsies, I drew a river of gibbering mouthers because why not?
I wasn't in the room for that conversation.
No.
That just came out of your brain, I guess.
Yeah, it did.
But good God,
but
that
just,
makes a great moat.
Yeah, exactly. You wouldn't want to cross that, would you? So yeah, these again. This is it's really just brain fodder for the writers and for myself and for anybody that's working on the thing or a book. You know, maybe none of them will get used, maybe some of them will get used. But
We're like, that's too tall, that's too pointy.
but maybe they're like, oh, I like the idea of you know, a wooden door with a face on it, or these giant horns as a motif, and then that might get used in another piece or another idea or another piece of the tomb itself.
So can we jump to 18E, because we've got the doors.
Right.
But now,
Oh yeah, skeleton keys.
what are what are we looking at here?
So, I don't remember where this idea came from. The idea of actual skeletons being used to open doors.
Richard told me it was from a really early meeting you had with
Pendleton?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this could have been out of Pendleton's head. The idea of the skeletal doors, or using some sort of weird, you have to break up the skeleton and stick its body parts in holes or something to open up a door. Out of that idea came this thing where you've got these basically walking skeleton keys that you kind of have to apprehend and use.
So again, I think we've mentioned it a few times, but Pendleton Ward was one of the, what would his official role be? Story consultant.
Yeah.
For Tomb of Annihilation. So
Yeah.
from the mind of Pendleton Ward and others.
Exactly,
Yeah.
yes.
So if we look at, kind of again, going through some of the concepts of the tombs and the dungeons, if we jump to 18B, I believe it's the exsanguination room.
Ooh. Yes.
Oh yeah.
Gross. What is going on here, Sean?
Yeah.
Again, it was just, you know, this was early on. We were just starting to talk about it, so I was doing some pre-work of just coming up with, after I read The Tomb of Horrors again, and I was like, oh, that's cool, and this idea of all these different puzzle rooms that were kind of horrifying, and just, you know, taking my twist. And I wanted to come up with some ideas that, you know, were very visual. And one of the things I liked about the original Tomb of Horrors is that they had all these little cool vignettes for the actual rooms. And so I was like, well, you know, what are things that players just walk in and go, what the hell? Censored there. And that's what it came up with. It was just like this room of things on chains and bags that are dripping blood into pools, and then, you know, a really big door with a giant, you know, yellow ochre or a black pudding behind it.
So I was hoping those were beautiful butterflies.
They could be, but, you know, you've got to volunteer to climb up them and cut them open. And again, this was just kind of visual.
Or you could just leave them alone like a normal person.
Yeah, and walk right back out, which is what all D&D players probably should do.
Nope.
It definitely, I think, speaks to maybe some of the themes and mood of Tomb of Annihilation and Acererak and his dungeons, which are, for God's sakes, if you saw this, you should leave well enough alone. But Acererak is a tricky guy, and in some cases you might have to mess with it, or he wants you to mess with it, and that's how he messes with you. But I think it speaks a lot to some of the tricks and tribulations that await parties in the dungeon.
Yeah. And again, all this was just, you know, brain fodder, me trying to, you know, incept the writers a little bit.
I think we have another good one, 19A, a bit of a concept of going through some of the dungeons.
Oh, yeah.
So what are we looking at here? And I love this piece just from the geography.
Again, this was just a real early piece, just trying to show maybe we can do something that isn't just a literal room. You know, maybe it is a dungeon that's much bigger and has a completely different feel. And so it's at this stage for me on the concepting side and the story side, before much is written down, I try to like just throw as many noodles at the wall I can visually, and, you know, see what sticks. And sometimes they don't stick, sometimes they do.
So I suppose my question from a process point would be, let's say we've got a beautiful room like that. Is there a challenge or a prohibition from giving that to a cartographer? Because you need sort of an isometric approach, or you would display it in the adventure in a more visual style so that you could see what's going on?
At that point, I'm less worried about consequences and more just about inspiration, for better or worse. If I start thinking about, oh, well, maybe they can't write this, or maybe it doesn't work on a map, then I'm thinking too hard. I mean, that stuff comes in later when we start weeding the stuff out.
I think we have one more good piece of a door. I was going to look at 19B. And here we have a different style of door that can be opened by players. So,
right.
What are we?
Again,
what horrible thing are we feasting our eyes on now?
You know, again, it was just, you know, how different can we make things? And this was the idea of, oh, what if there was a giant trapped kneeling, and it was some kind of puzzle element that you had to, do or work with this giant to open the door. There's no literal puzzle there. I didn't figure it out. It was just kind of creating something on the fly.
Yeah, it did. This, coupled with ILO 20B, did inspire something in the dungeon. The idea of having to use undead to open up a doorway. This picture shows zombies literally hidden in the walls to either side of the door, operating the manual chains to open it. And so in the Tomb of Annihilation, there is a room which has 3 zombies chained to it. And you have to basically turn them or drive them away so that they pull the chains taut and open the door.
And that, I remember actually when we came up with the idea, was when I had a bunch of sketchers brought it in.
Yeah.
And it was me, you, and actually Matt Mercer had come in as a guest for something else. And he was in the room, and we started talking about doors and dungeons. And that was one of the ideas that came out of that conversation.
And there's also another door in the dungeon which has ghouls hidden in the walls, and you basically have to feed blood through the door to feed the ghouls so that they'll open it.
We watch a lot of HGTV at my house, and I got to tell you, this is usually not the kind of home improvement stylings that typically goes on.
Gotta quit watching those Canadian shows.
Yeah.
Let's look at a few more pieces. We've got, I think, 20A and 20C we haven't seen yet, so some more concepting. And when I say horrible, I mean that in the greatest possible way. But some more concepting of various
There's
things.
that guy there. He survived.
The blind artists. So that's the one you're pointing. Yeah.
Not the Minotaur with the...
No.
Well, Minotaurs actually became a major theme in the adventure over the course of writing, and I can explain how that happened, but very briefly. So after seeing this illustration and after starting actual work on the adventure and realizing Ubtao uses a maze as a symbol, and that the city of Omu sort of had some maze-like elements to it, that we actually built into the lore that Minotaurs helped the Chultans build the city. So in the Tomb of Annihilation itself, you can find Minotaur bones and other remains to suggest their presence.
Good tip-off.
Yeah.
And a little weaving through.
And part of the inspiration for this was from the original Tomb of Horrors, which there was it a blind artist that was painting? It was somebody that... There's an NPC wandering around, and I think he has his eyes sewn shut or his mouth sewn shut or something like that, and he's
definitely
doomed
the
to
frescoes in the Return.
Right, and there were and so again, this was not that it might have been a long day at work, all these artists chained up.
The suffering artists, motif coming through loud and clear, Sean.
I don't know.
And can we jump back to 28 to take a look at this as well? So this is, again, I love just the silhouettes of a couple of adventurers maybe going, what?
The chained up Nothics was something we kept in the adventure.
These are the figures in the background with the one eye chained to the wall.
Because a Nothic can still hurt you even though it's chained up.
Yeah. And I actually had recently played through the Mines of Fandelver, and there's a Nothic in that adventure. And I absolutely loved that encounter. And I love Nothics just because they're so weird. I mean, even their history is weird, and what they can do is weird. And I was like, well, what if there were 3 of them? And then it's just everything else is just
dressing.
Set pieces of confusion.
Well, I mean, that's the thing about Tomb of Horrors is there are just odd things in every room that you're supposed to explore.
So for your benefit or detriment?
Right.
You never know.
Yeah, you're not sure of what they can do.
The Nothics always reminded me of Mike Lebowski from Monsters, Inc. Just sort of horrible version of such. So we've seen some concept art pieces. If we look at 20D, this is actually a finished piece from the book.
This is one of the last pieces done for the book, actually.
Oh,
The reason it was one of the last pieces was I think Richard forgot to do it.
Just throw him under the bus since he's not here.
No, I'm pretty sure he'd fess up to it. Like, it's one of those things that was on his very long list of to-dos.
Sean, come on, throw him under the Juggernaut.
Juggernaut.
Oh, wow.
There we go.
There it was.
But part of it also stemmed from the fact that we were working with WizKids on minis, and we wanted to make sure that our Juggernaut looked like their Juggernaut.
Okay.
And so there was some back and forth between Richard and their art directors on what the final look of the thing was. And then once the mini was done, Richard felt comfortable going back in and doing this piece. Originally, it was on a flat floor, and I asked him to incline it. But he put all the bones under the floor there. That's his little ad.
So I believe we talked about this early on of the previewing for Tomb of Annihilation. So if you're familiar with Tomb of Horrors, we've got the Juggernaut that exists there. And
yes, and it's the same kind of contraption. It's a big rolling thing that just flattens you.
Right. And so, and correct me if I'm wrong, but some of the thinking was Sarac might know that you know a bit about the Tomb of Horrors, and he may or may not use that knowledge against you.
There's a little bit of inside baseball. Sarac, aware of his reputation, and he's got certain sort of go-to things that he likes to throw into every one of his tombs, and certainly the rolling Juggernaut is a recurring motif. Now, the Juggernaut may change its shape slightly, but its function is basically the same.
So
Pain.
Prediction.
If it isn't broken, don't fix it.
Yeah.
Clubber Lang's prediction for your party going through this adventure. If we look at 21A, we're getting close to the end of the hour, unfortunately, but also the end of some of the final pieces in.
This isn't a final piece, though.
No,
No.
but as you're diving deep into some of the tombs.
Yeah.
So, again, what do we have here as we approach the face?
Just kind of, again, more set and mood pieces of how we could possibly use the devil mask motif, and different feelings of what a dungeon can feel like, as opposed to just a straight up room. And I love that scene from the third Indiana Jones movie. Where he walks across the big bridge at the end.
Yes, he walks across over the alligators.
Oh, no, that's the fourth one.
Oh, no, that's the third. No, you're right. I'm confusing Temple of Doom with...
oh, yeah.
Yes.
This is the one with Sean Connery in it.
Oddly enough, he's always walking over bridges.
Yeah.
Good point.
But,
but yeah, it's just a nice, easy kind of visual set piece to help kind of inspire ideas and thoughts.
And if we look at 22A,
I really liked how this piece turned out.
now what are we looking at here? It's entitled.
So
I don't want to give it away.
Yeah, I don't know if we would say it has a title, but we needed something that could be sarcophagus-esque or something like that, and it's a little different than what you would normally see in D&D illustrations, but just kind of given a shot of bringing some natural elements and magic into a possible room.
I love the detail on the walls.
This
work, I suppose you would say.
Yeah, this was a concept to illustrate what the tomb of a god might look like.
And if we go to 22B, I believe we have a final piece of a different version of it.
This is a different tomb of a different god that you can find inside the Tomb of Annihilation. Now, the Tomb of Annihilation's other name is the Tomb of the Nine Gods, and that's because there are 9 dead gods trapped inside it. And this is one of them. In fact, this is the Tomb of Papatla, a god that took the form of an ebli, or a giant crane. And those are vats of humanoid bones that can pour out and become skeletons.
Got a bit of an infestation issue.
There's a whole lot going on in this illustration. None of it good.
I call this my Outlook inbox.
Yeah.
And that's me
Right.
trying to address the incoming.
Yeah.
I can see that.
That resonates. Yeah. And just more skeletons keep on coming.
Yeah. It's never going to stop, Bart.
Turn the bats off.
It's never going to stop.
I'm looking through. There's a couple pieces we didn't have a chance to hit, but
Oh, well.
if we look at 16A, I'm going back out of the tomb now, back into the jungle, but I don't want to miss anything. But here we also have a great look at Serac himself, or a version of.
I think that was just a little kind of a set piece thing I wanted to do, just to, a possible tomb intro. Just, I think we used it in some of the marketing art when we were giving things to partners.
This is the save the date card that he sends out.
Yes, yes, there you go. Perfect.
It'll be great.
It's the brochure on the front.
And if we've got 16B and then 17, but 16B, kind of an evolution, I imagine, where this is a final piece from the book, though, but very much in the ruins, not necessarily of the final tomb, but in ruins of Chult and how the jungle.
Yeah. This is actually one of the entrances to the tomb.
Oh, it is? Okay.
Yeah.
But it's a great look at, hey, if you build within the jungles of Chult, the jungles of Chult will build up.
And even actually the puzzle that you need to solve to get into the tomb is represented there on the door. So.
Yes, if folks can see those, the 3x3 that might play into your adventure.
Yes, there are 9 gods in the tomb.
I didn't want to. Emmy Tanji is working on a PDF handout in a future issue of Dragon Plus that will help dungeon masters around the table physically represent that puzzle as well.
Yes.
I don't want to tip
Very
off
excited
too much,
about that.
But we're working on a physical component that we can give away. So if we jump back into 17. We can end on one of our big baddies. Folks have seen this before.
Yeah, this image has appeared all over the place.
Ras Nsi.
He's so cool. So how did he sort of visually develop as a villain for the adventure?
Ras Nsi had a pretty big history to him, and basically, at first it was like, well, he's become Naga. Yanti, sorry. And so it was kind of like, well, what kind of Yanti is he? And so we played around with which parts of snakes he should be. Kind of got that nailed down to see how human he was. And then I did some illustrations of him at Nice, and then Chris told me, no. He's got plague all over him. And then it was like, okay, now I got to make him look sick. This particular piece was done off a concept piece, but it was this one I do know who did it. It was Draken.
You mean Darken?
Darken. Okay, there you go. different creature.
Darken. Yeah. Yes, and shows the flaming sword that Ras Nsi is known to have.
Yep.
This was a good opportunity for us to take a figure who, in previous lore, was human, and turn him into something else, because there's a section in the Yuan-Ti description of the monster manual that describes, and it's developed in Volo's Guide to Monsters even more, that describes this idea that people can turn into or be turned into Yuan-Ti through horrible, horrible rituals. But you have to be a pretty depraved person to want to do it willingly.
I can only imagine.
Yep.
All right, well, here we are at the top of the 5 o'clock hour. I'm glad that we had an opportunity to go through the art. We got through all of the art that you were able to send across, so I appreciate, Sean, you sending some of the concept pieces. Again, it's important for us to help showcase the art from the books because it's beautiful and we love it, and we're proud of our art and our artists. And one of the things that I'd like to take better advantage of is showing some of the concepting that goes into it as well, because it's great stuff, and it inspires the final art pieces, but it inspires us as well as players and dungeon masters, and hopefully for folks in their game.
Yeah, and a lot of folks don't know that we haven't always had people on staff to do concepting or to help us get concepts and ideas off the ground. This is a fairly new thing to 5th edition, so we're lucky to have you.
And we're looking forward to showcasing more of it in future episodes and other ways. So really quickly again, next week at this time, 4 p.m., it will be the triumphant return of Dice Camera Action Waffle Crew.
Oh my gosh, that's right.
4 p.m. to 6 p.m. Pacific, Chris Perkins will be leading the Waffle Crew through their new season of adventures.
Yes. And Danny Hartel will be returning as a guest star.
Oh,
playing
fantastic.
Captain Zandala. Or Zandala.
So that will be next week. We will also be moving Dragon Plus that week to 2 p.m. on Tuesdays. In future weeks, we will shift it, I believe, over to Thursdays to get it a little further spaced out from Dragon Talk. Apparently, we like to name all of our studio shows Dragon something.
Easy to search for.
We like dragons very much. Dragon Plus itself, issue 15, is out now. You can subscribe on Android or iOS or online at dragonmag.com. We're hard at work on our next issue. Issue 16 will be out at the end of October. And again, for Extra Life, please take a look at the Dungeons & Dragons website. It's at the Extra Life 2017 page. Chris Perkins will be running a game. Mike Merles will be running a game, both at Gamehole Con in Madison, Wisconsin, November 3rd, November 4th. And Sean Wood will be running a game November 4th here at Wizards of the Coast. We will have donation levels set up along the way. Supports a great cause. And again, if you missed it, in addition to running our Extra Life games, we are also releasing the Tortle Package on DM's Guild on or before September 19th. Playable race of anthropomorphized turtles. I'm sure I'm not the only one making the vision of a party of 4 turtles
That'll be okay.
and a were-rat monk guy.
Wow.
And,
Wow.
come on, it's got to be. On that lovely high note. We appreciate everyone watching. We appreciate everyone subscribing. And we will be coming back later this evening with Maze Arcana with Satines.
Yay!
Thank you, Mr. Perkins. Thank you, Mr. Wood.
Thank you, Bart.
All right. Thanks for having us.
Absolutely.
Bye!